Welcome to Dave Campbell's Texas Football Online Series Double Coverage. I'm Courtney Schellin, joined by Greg Tepper.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about potential Heisman winners in Texas.
Yeah, well, you think about it, the Heisman has really set up shop in the state of Texas recently, both from the high school and college level. The last two have played both their high school ball and college ball in the state of Texas, and I think there's an opportunity for that to remain the case this year with a couple of candidates.
I think if we're talking like with schools that have the most potential, people we're going with like Baylor and Texas A&M, you know, and then Texas Tech, you have Jason Morrow who's doing great too. But when it comes down to people who are really like potentially going to do it, we have Bryce Petty, Lake Strunk, and then Johnny Manziel, obviously, and Mike Evans.
Sure. Well, let's take the last one first with Mike Evans. I think that Mike Evans is the best wide receiver in the country, and I don't think there's a whole lot of debate about that. But it's very hard for a wide receiver to win the Heisman, and as good as he has been, it's Manziel that's getting the Heisman praise, the Heisman hype. So as good as Mike Evans has been, and I think he's been fabulous. I think he's going to win the Biletnikoff Award, but I don't think the Heisman is necessarily in his future. For Manziel, it's interesting, and I wrote about this on TexasFootball.com in the offseason, about how Manziel, I don't think, was ever going to win the Heisman again without being a national title contender.
Right.
Because the Heisman Trust and the Heisman voters have only voted one person ever, a two-time Heisman winner. That's Archie Griffin. And basically what that would be doing if you were to vote for Manziel to win a second Heisman, you would be elevating him to the level of greatest college football player ever. And I don't think that Heisman voters want to do that. Now, is he one of the most electrifying players in Texas college football history? Absolutely. Not even close. He's been incredible. And in fact, you can make an argument that he's been better this year than he was last year. Now, he's thrown a few more interceptions. But I look at this, and I think the deck was stacked against him from the beginning just because of the historic precedent that it would set. So as far as A&M's chances of bringing home another Heisman, they've got two guys that I think should be in the conversation, but I think that, unfortunately for them, the expectations and really the circumstances were stacked against them.
Do you think Manziel has a better chance of winning the Heisman over Mike Evans, or do you think Mike Evans is? Yeah,
I think it's got to be Manziel because he's the one getting the headlines. It's a quarterback's award. Wide receivers very rarely factor into it.
Desmond Howard was the last wide receiver one. That was in 1991.
Exactly,
so.
and that's a guy who really won it not only because he was a great wide receiver, but also because he was a dynamic special teams player. And he's kind of an oddball in the grand scheme of things of the Heisman. This is a quarterback running back award, so it's going to take one of that.
So let's compare quarterbacks here. So we have Johnny Manziel. Then what about next to Bryce Petty? What are we thinking for Bryce Petty?
Well, listen, Bryce Petty's been great, and Bryce Petty has really had. What's funny about Bryce Petty is that I don't think he has been markedly better than Nick Florence was last year. And the thing is, that's not a knock on Petty at all, because I think Nick Florence was amazing last year. He led the nation in passing. He was just an incredible player. But to win the Heisman, you have to not only be great, but you have to have exposure, and you have to be playing for a winner. And Baylor simply wasn't a winner last year because basically their defense short-circuited everything. Well, now they have a quarterback in Petty who's doing about what Florence did, maybe a little bit better, maybe a half notch better than what Florence is doing, but he's also got a great team around him. And so it kind of tells you all about what the Heisman's really about. It's not necessarily the most outstanding player, but maybe the most outstanding player on the most prominent team.
And then, so under Bryce Petty, Lake Strunk would probably be the next right up there, and then maybe Glasgow Martin, Tepper Reese.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tepper Reese now out for the year with a broken wrist that he suffered in the Oklahoma game. Lake Strunk's injury in the Oklahoma game is going to hamper his chances as well. But beyond
Definitely.
that, Lake Strunk was a self-declared Heisman candidate in the offseason, and I love it. I love that kind of swagger to say, hey, I'm going to come out and I'm going to win the Heisman. But I wrote on TexasFootball.com in the post in the offseason that his chances of winning it were not great, and it has nothing to do with him because he's an electrifying talent.
Right.
But because of the system that he plays in, it does not lend itself to a running back being the main star. Let me explain. Baylor is a great running team. There's not really any doubt about that. They throw the ball well and they run the ball well. But what Art Briles does at Baylor is that he spreads the ball around too much. He is not a one-back guy. And generally, if you look at the Heisman's history, it's gone to running backs who were the main runner. It's gone to guys like Trent Richardson. It's gone to guys Adrian Pearson didn't win the Heisman, but Adrian Pearson was a prime candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that. And unfortunately for Lake Seastrom, he's under the horrible situation of playing for Art Briles, where you're going to get a ton of yards, but the problem is they're going to be spread out between so many backs, and you already see it. You see it with Lake Seastrom getting carries, with Glasgow Martin getting carries, as well as Shock Linwood getting carries. So when you do that, that's problematic for your Heisman chances. You have to get more than about 45% of your team's carries to really be in the Heisman discussion, to be a reasonable Heisman candidate. And unfortunately, Seastrom's just not going to get there. That's through no fault of his own. He's fantastic when he gets the ball, but he's just not going to touch the ball.
Yeah, and especially now with the injury, then. Sure. I mean.
Yeah, and you don't know when he's going to be back. I mean, I haven't heard anything of late. Hopefully he bounces back quickly because he's a dynamic force. But for now, it looks like I would say that the Lone Star State's best chance of bringing home the Heisman again would be through Bryce Petty. But I think that Petty, they're going to need to run the table for him to have a chance.
And then Johnny Manziel.
And and Manziel is going to be in the conversation as well. But I mean, I still think they're behind Jameis Winston, the quarterback at Florida State. I still think he's the front runner. Braxton Miller, the quarterback at Ohio State, is going to start getting some buzz if he keeps playing well. Marcus Mariota, even with a loss to Stanford, is going to be in the conversation. And then you might have a guy sneak in like Jordan Lynch at Northern Illinois if they run the table. So it's going to be an uphill climb, but I think that your best chances for the Lone Star State to bring one home would be either Petty or Manziel.
Petty and Manziel, they both have a standing chance against any of those people.
They both have a great case. They've both been fantastic players, and if I had a vote, I would vote for one of them. I won't say which one, but I would vote for one of them.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this day's segment. So tune in next time. Thanks for watching.